And that tax code, which was intended to be a temporary stopgap until they figured out how to get the income tax back, is basically the tax code we had up until this year, March of 2026, where our state budget is about 50% sales tax revenue, about 20% business and occupation tax, about 15% property tax, and the rest a variety of largely other excise taxes or taxes on transactions. And the problem with that is that the economy today looks really, really different than the economy looked in the mid 1930s uh, in a number of different ways. For one thing, uh, we are buying and selling a lot of things that aren't just goods in the way that they largely were in the 30s. And so there's a whole category of economic events that aren't being taxed. In another, because we continue to rely on property tax, which after a variety of changes are capped in their growth, um, which means that they're not keeping up with the cost of the states doing business. And lastly, because we are so heavily reliant on sales tax for the most part, we're in a circumstance where, again, before this last legislative session, the lowest 20% of earners in Washington state were paying about 14% of their income in taxes, while the top 1% were paying about 4%. 14% for the lowest 20%, 4% for the top 1%, which is just crazy and morally inexcusable. And that's what we mean by a regressive tax code. So this was the situation that we were in prior to this legislative session. We had made some progress with the passage of the statewide capital gains tax, which I know some people on this call were really involved in. But we were still in a circumstance where our structural budget deficit was growing, and we were one of the most regressive tax codes in the country. And so this is why the millionaires tax fight was so important, because it was a fight to impose a 9.9% tax on all income over $1 million, which is by itself enough to bring in billions of dollars a year for K-12 education, for healthcare, for all those things that matter. But it's also an opportunity to test at the state Supreme Court that ruling that they put in place in the 1930s that said that income is property. Even at the time, this was kind of a shaky a ruling. There were only a few other states that designated income as property, but all of those states have repealed that designation